Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation Season 2, Part 2 involves Rudy settling into a nice life with Sylphie, and then they end up getting the delivery of his sisters, who end up reappearing with Ruijerd, and they end up living with him. And he has a sort of moment with his younger sister, Norn, who sort of lapses into the sort of like neat, well, I guess neat's not appropriate, the sort of hikikomori lifestyle that Rudy used to have back in his previous life. And there's a sort of like nice, I want to say heartwarming, it does feel like the scene was a little undercooked, moment where he sort of like connects with his sister and they sort of end up making up with their relationship. There's also developments as far as like Rudy and his family life goes outside of the relationship with his sisters, and a bit of a development with Annalise, I think. Annalise and Cliff. Her name's hard to remember, that's the problem. Between Annalise and Cliff, and then they get an alarming message from that, like, one guy from, like, the dog people village, where apparently the journey to rescue Rudy's mom is not going well. So he ends up getting help from Nanashi, and him and Annalise end up arriving there to help with the reclamation of his mom, which also involves reconnecting with Roxy, and that goes in a direction for sure. I will say that one of the things I liked so much about the first part of the season was that it was fucking hilarious. Season 2 is a lot more serious, and I mean, that's not bad, but I do think it's why I probably enjoyed it a little less. But I want to be clear, it is such a good season. There's a lot of strong emotional moments, a lot of nice connection between the characters, and, you know, the thing I like about Mushoku Tensei is it's not afraid to progress time or its characters or the relationships. It's really good with that. It keeps doing what it does well, and it keeps expanding on that. And I think this season really goes places. The whole sort of like theme of this is like a sort of theme of like family and like connections between family members. That's the overarching theme between this entire second half. And it comes together for some really like emotionally powerful and in some places heartbreaking moments. I will say, as far as the harem element of the story goes, I knew it going in, so none of this was particularly surprising. In fact, I mentioned before, I think with the season 1 review, that I actually wanted Mushoku Tensei to get an adaptation because I actually knew about it back as a light novel. Not that I ever read the light novel, but regardless, so I knew basically how the story was going to end from the beginning. It's just like, how do you get there that I'm less familiar with? And so I have to say that surprisingly enough, and surprising isn't necessarily the best word, but we'll put an asterisk next to that. I think Mushoku Tensei is handling the harem element about as well as it could based on my own biases. When I say surprising, I'm not surprised that Mushoku Tensei is handling this topic with a sense of maturity. That's sort of its whole gimmick, is it takes things that other pieces of media would take for granted, and it actually is willing to explore these. Now that I think about it, Mushoku Tensei is definitionally a deconstruction. It's just not a deconstruction in the way that people that usually misuse the term actually mean. But regardless, what ends up happening with this is like, it handles, when I say it's surprising, I more mean that this is a sort of topic that is usually handled very poorly in other pieces of media. I will say that we don't get to see where this is all leading to by the end of the season, but I have every faith that going into season 3, which is confirmed, I already knew it was confirmed, but like they confirm it in this season. That's like the last shot of this. So looking into it, yeah, I have every faith that Mushoku Tensei will continue to develop in a favorable direction. Twitch and Discord in the description. I've been Sacrobolic, your envoy of hope. Bye-bye.